Hi, welcome to another episode of What's That All About? This is kind of a doozy, all right? I'm just going to ask you to lay back, relax, open your mind. The stories I'm about to tell you are they're fantastical. I'm going to tell you up front, I believe them because I have a tendency to not be gullible, but to open my mind really into far reaches. So, today's episode's about the icy secrets at Antarctica. But first, I want to give you a couple of little cool pun details about this continent. It's 98% of the ground is covered by an ice sheet up to 3 miles thick. So I'm thinking no ice fishing, but no danger of falling in if you wanted to go ice skating. There's a mountain in Japan, Mount Fuji, right? It's 12,388 feet. Wouldn't even come through the surface in Antarctica. Like, it's nuts. So, I mean, look at the ice shelf. Look at this. You kidding? All right. Temperatures are usually about 50 below. Now, I live in a cold place during the winter, Idaho. We got down to minus 30 this year, but so far, I should say. But they also have winds of 200 miles an hour. So this is essentially where like windbreakers go to die. So sorry about that, folks. During its peak season in Antarctica, which is like November through March. Actually, though, their summer months are considered October through April because it's basically about 24 hours of sunlight. And it's like, if there's tons of scientists there year round. When I say tons, at the peak season, there's about 4,000 scientists, but there's also military personnel. There's 3 bases that we have there, but nowhere could I find any numbers of how many military personnel we have. So I thought that was a little odd, but I mean, neither here nor there. Now, due to the depth of how much ice covering there is, it is impossible to see the surface of Antarctica with the naked eye. So it's not only the geology, though. Ancient astronaut theorists theorize that there's a lot more besides the geology that is hiding things up there. So over there. They suspect that it could be some human, but also some non-human things going on there. And that's where I come in. Now, it's not a shock to know that we haven't found out about a lot of these things that might be going on there. I'm going to tell you a story that personally I believe, like I said, but the reputation of the person I'm telling you about is literally above reproach. He's a decorated officer and well-respected among the ranks. Now, his name was Admiral Richard Byrd, and I'm sure you have heard of him. Back in August of 1946, he's a naval officer and explorer, but he also organized Operation High Jump. It was an operation that had like 13 ships, 23 aircraft, and over 4,700 military personnel. Linda Moulton Howe, who I've actually mentioned before, also in my book, that I've mentioned her. She's part of this this source that I use, which is the History Channel. I'm addicted. She says, quote, after the conclusion of World War II, Admiral Byrd was asked if he would mount a large armada, check that box, and go for 4 months, which, it was supposed to be December, January, February, March. So during the peak months. And there were a list of military goals that they had. Actually, one of the top goals was to find a location for a military base there. So, but before that could happen, they, by the end of February, something else had occurred that halted a lot of the plans, best laid plans and all that. So, the story that I'm about to tell you, and you may have heard it already, I'm not sure, but the story that was told came from his Admiral Byrd's personal diaries, not from any reports, not from anything that was published. when he attempted to even talk about publishing what he had experienced, it was kiboshed right away. I know that that's probably going to be something that's unusual to hear, that the government shut down something like this. But again, it happened. They were frightened by what they heard, was the real truth, I think, behind that. But anyway, his diary, which was discovered by his son after his death, it told this extraordinary story. I can't I can't even explain to you when you first hear this story, and it's about, look at this picture. This is what Admiral Byrd drew in his diary, and it was obviously colored to look a little bit more, easier to see and read and all this stuff. So I'm going to leave that there so you can study that, but you don't have to study it, but you know what I mean. So Admiral Byrd had heard that there was an entrance to the center of the Earth through the South Pole. So he took his planes that they proceeded to go into and under the South Pole. And when he did, that's when he discovered something that he couldn't believe was happening before his eyes. As they proceeded, they came upon lush greenery at Antarctica underneath the South Pole. Lush green, beautiful landscape. He describes coming upon a shimmering rainbow city that appeared to be made out of beautiful crystals, as you can see here. Just stunning. His airplane was then allegedly taken over by flying discs that appeared around them. And when I say taken over, the engines ceased. Nothing, all the instrumentation was shut down. The planes were shut down, but they were brought safely to the ground. Okay? Now, once he was landed, he was escorted to a cave, also cavernous type area, where he met a being that he referred to as the Master. And the Master proceeded to tell Admiral Byrd that his people were highly disappointed in how the humans had been using nuclear weapons and how they recently had destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they were very concerned about what was going on the surface. They told Admiral Byrd that they hoped humanity would eventually end this sooner rather than later, but there's a portion of the story this portion in particular is important to UFO researchers because of the fact that modern day or modern UFO era, the era really began after World War II. And the first atomic bombs were dropped right then. So that's when you all of a sudden saw a high number of UFO sightings around nuclear bases. For instance, the perfect example of this, which is in my book, UFOs, Bring Back History to See the Path Forward. I have an opinion in there, and what happened is at these bases, Maelstrom in Montana, a United States Air Force captain by the name of Robert Salas reported on March 24th, 1967, that 10 intercontinental ballistic missiles went offline. Oh my God, that makes me nauseous. And apparently the missiles went offline at the same time that UFOs, at the time called UFOs, were sighted above the base. Okay, now see, they have underground missiles. This is just a picture at Maelstrom of one of the underground missile silos. So now in my book, I'm just going to read a quick passage because I really do think it's kind of the way that some of us might be interpreting this. I said, in my very humble opinion, very important to start off humble, I think these crafts and whoever is responsible for operating them are showing us what they are capable of doing. Whether they are turning these deadly world-ending weapons on or off, they are making it quite obvious that we don't really have the control they do. And it also occurs to me that they just might be trying to save us from ourselves. So, I mean, I I know that there's rumors of bad aliens, good aliens, and all this stuff, but clearly the ones that Admiral Byrd experienced or encountered were not of the malevolent kind. They were benevolent, and they were sending warnings. Ultimately, these beings share a planet with us. They may live on the inside, but they monitor what's happening on the outside, on the surface. So, it's an amazing encounter. And, he came back from his mission and he was eager to share everything he had seen and learned. And he wanted to basically like spread the message, maybe it can make a difference. And he was immediately shut down, and insert my shock here. And he was told that anything in his personal diaries, along with anything in the reports, was determined to be classified. And he had a direct order not to talk about it. Now, because I've told you, he had an exemplary military record, and any officer that gets a direct order is going to follow it. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that story, because like I said, open mind, new possibilities. It's, they're out there. So I'm going to introduce you to another story that involves Linda Moulton Howe again. In July of 2018, she was approached by a whistleblower that she refers to as Spartan 1. Now, he is a retired Navy SEAL, and he agreed to share with her some of the information that was classified, but it's something that he experienced while he was on a mission in Antarctica with other SEALs. So the story he tells is he and a few other of his team were inbound on the southwest coast of Antarctica. They were dispatched to unofficially be part of a research reconnaissance mission. Officially, it was to locate an individual, a certain individual that he did not disclose, and obtain any information and bring it back. Again, he was vague here, probably kind of for obvious reasons, right? Protection, cover your ass type stuff. But according to Spartan 1, when he and his team reached their destination, they encountered a large octagonal structure protruding from the ice. So they started to approach it. And what he realized was that there were doors that varied between 18 feet and 30 feet thick of ice. But upon approaching them to open them, all they needed to do was use their finger, one finger, to push on the door. And without any resistance at all, they opened. Now, outside, the temperature was a balmy -40 degrees. As soon as they walked into these hallways, it was an ambient 68 to 72 degrees, which blew my mind. Linda Moulton Howe asked the question, what were you seeing? What were you, sensing? Like, what did the walls look like, the ceiling, the floor? And he described it as this. The walls were lit in a lime green glow. But they couldn't locate the light source, so they couldn't figure out where that was coming from. There were also hieroglyphs on the walls, and now he's a Navy SEAL. He's been all over the world on different types of missions, but he's never seen hieroglyphs like this. It's like one of those things where you're looking at this unbelievable discovery, but there's also like a touch of kind of like human presence about it. But his instinct was that it was definitely made of a higher intelligence. There's not much more. There could be more now. Again, I saw a lot of it on History Channel. I binge watch History Channel like crazy. That and a lot of podcasts that involve this sort of discussion, weaponized, as I've mentioned in many of my shows with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. They're phenomenal. I think eventually they will be getting to something up in Antarctica. They probably already have at some point in another platform done that. But, the question to me it's like, who built them? Are they still there? Are they still in Antarctica, in the Middle Earth? I don't know. I hope you found this episode, honestly, as kind of trippy as I did. And I hope you did open your mind a little bit, because it's not only is it better to be informed and have all the options out there. But, since I'm such a research junkie, I like to think that a lot of the stuff that I find isn't just make believe, aren't just stories. So if you did enjoy this, I would ask you to like and subscribe. And until next week, I will ask you to stay happy and healthy and stay weird. That's very important. And take care. And thanks for stopping by. Next time, we'll ask more questions about what's that all about. Thanks.